And we welcome both Deborah and Bonnie, well respected by many of us, and their ideas of generating leads is very much of value to people who are doing business to business development and growth and such. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and invite Bonnie and Debbie to introduce ourselves and answer the first question. And by the way, everybody, you're welcome to put questions in the chat or jump in and just ask a question as the conversation pauses. But I guess we'll go alphabetically by first name. So Bonnie, and then ask Deborah to answer as well. Where do you see the trend now? So in business development, it's not just about leads, it's about quality leads, or more so, it's about deals that we can close. So what trends are you seeing as a way to connect and get conversations with the right people?
Yeah, it's a great question, Hal. Thanks for asking that. Back in the day, companies relied solely on salespeople to get all the information they needed about a company. They relied on in-person presentations with brochures and lookbooks and fancy collateral. And basically, the company was completely reliant on the sales rep to educate them in the buying process. Nowadays, 70% of the buying process is happening online, and companies are coming up with a short list of vendors that they want to work with when they determine they need something. And then they ask for a proposal from the short list of vendors, and then they kind of narrow it down based on price and features and services from there. So it's you're getting less and less face time in front of the decision makers, and that's an issue. So the best way to remedy this issue is to make your website and your social media page, turn it into a salesperson, a 24-hour, 365-day salesperson that delivers the message that you're trying to convey, shows how you're different and what makes you unique, and allows the person to schedule some time with you through a live chat or through a calendar invite where they can book a time to talk with you direct. And so the more administrative tasks like calendar booking and online chat that you can, get that quick answers to their questions and quick response and downloadable content, brochures and everything on the website itself. So it kind of sells for you before they actually talk to a person.
Good points, thank you. And interesting that you mentioned that 70% of the buying journal or buying pipeline or journey is done online. That number seems to be increasing from the last one I had heard. So thank you for sharing. And Deborah, again, what do you think it is? What are the trends that you're seeing about connecting to the right people?
So I'm not sure how many benefits there are of being old, but one of them is that I have a very good perspective. And I was mentioning earlier that BusinessWise just celebrated our 41st anniversary in business. And what I see as the biggest trends is that new business development is more difficult than ever. And so if you're feeling frustrated and annoyed with how difficult it is to get somebody on the phone or to respond to your email or other kind of outreach, you're not alone. It is harder. And maybe in some ways that's a good thing, because if it were that easy, everyone would do it. Now, some of the strange things that I see, when we started in business 41 years ago, we really only had 2 or 3 national competitors. No one is ever focused on the local markets like we do in terms of researching all of the businesses, but there have always been competitors that have offered data for the entire country or the world. Well, now there are literally thousands of companies that are scraping the web and offering some kind of data. You can get it from all different places. And so that also changed the world. I feel like everybody that retired or wanted to get into a new job or lost their job went into database marketing because the numbers just exploded. So that makes a difference too, because there is so much mediocrity and garbage out there that it also frustrates everybody. You know, it's like we all use the web every day and it's fantastic and wonderful, except for the times when it's not, when we can't find what we're looking for, or the information that we find is not accurate. So um, it's it's difficult, and yet that difficulty, I think, gives us all a great opportunity. If you focus on the right things and do those right things consistently, you're going to be part of that 20-something% that exceeds your goals.
At this point, then, if anybody else has comments or questions, feel free to jump in. I don't want to.
I actually wanted to say the exact same phenomenon happened in my world when the unemployment rate skyrocketed due to COVID, and and everyone going companies having to cut down. Resume writers came out of the woodwork. I don't want to call them the resume writers. People who have written anything, a paragraph in their lifetime, decided they were a resume writer and they wanted to help the unemployed, and they became resume writers all of a sudden. And they started holding webinars, and they started giving people misinformation about how to look for a job. So I understand that flood in the marketplace. I get that because that happened in my industry.
So Deborah, if you want to take that one step further then and say, what are you seeing is still connecting or good way to connect?
So there's an old rule that's called the 40-40-20 rule that came out many, many years ago for direct marketing. And as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most important things to think about and remains true today. It's saying that for a successful outreach to generate leads, 40% of your success comes from the offer. And what I mean by the offer is, if somebody agrees to do what you're asking, what do they get? 40%, the other 40% of the success of your outreach comes from the list. Who are you targeting? Because if it's not the right fit, even if it's the best offer in the world, if it's not the best offer to that person, it doesn't make any sense. So then 20% is everything else. And too often we focus on the 20% of everything else. We worry about the graphic here, or what size font should I use, or should I say this word versus that word, when you haven't honed on the list and you haven't honed on the right offer. So those are the most important things to me. Beyond that, I am still a believer in phone prospecting, cold calling. Oh, yuck, I know we all hate it. I think it still has its place, but in some different ways. If you're a large company and can employ SDRs, that's one thing. If you're a small company and can't do that, then you need to make your calling time and your target market extremely narrow. Maybe only 60 dream clients that you work with, or dream prospects, I should say, that you work with all the time, and do a combination of personal calling and emailing and doing all of that repeatedly. When you find somebody that buys, fill in that spot, or you find somebody is never going to buy, take them off, fill in that spot. For the rest of your prospects, I am a big believer in email outreach, automated email prospecting in particular, if done the right way, can be very successful.
So Bonnie, you and I have had conversations because part of your portfolio is web design. And there are times when, not necessarily me, but there are times when people get too detailed about the font or the shade of a color or something. When you hear that Deborah's saying, focus on the product, the offering, and the target more so than the minutia, what I might call minutia. So Bonnie, what are your thoughts about Deborah's last comments?
Yeah, Deborah's spot on, as always. She's been at it for a very long time. Listen to Deborah. It actually all starts with your buyer profile, figuring out who your customer is, what their job title is, and what their pain points are and why they buy from you. And then I would recommend that you have a piece of collateral. When I say collateral, I mean like a white paper, an ebook, a sales flyer that really addresses the pain points that your ideal customers face, and how you provide a solution to solve that pain point. So if you're hearing from people that the cost is too high, the services are too slow, I'm not getting it at the quality that I need it, you basically write a white paper or a flyer, or do a video that addresses how you solve that problem, whatever the problem is. And then you take these digital assets and you put them in that email campaign Deborah's talking about, with those 60 or 100 dream prospective clients. And you put that content on social media, and you put that content on your website, and that content in itself serves as a sales team for you, because it's solving problems and answering questions and addressing people's challenges at the precise moment they're looking for help. And what's really cool is you can use Deborah's program to get those dream prospects, those dream clients, and get the accurate information, their email address, their phone number, their address. And what you want to do is put them in a cadence of messaging, whether it's a phone call, and then maybe a little postcard in the mail, and then maybe a LinkedIn connection request, and then maybe an email, and then another phone call. Start all over again with that cadence, once a week, once a month, once a quarter. And you have these dream people in this cadence. They're hearing from you all the time. You're answering their questions, you're solving their problems through this content that I'm talking about. And next thing you know, you'll have a nice flow of leads coming in, and referrals. So that's kind of my systematic way of making that digital and that physical touch work in tandem with each other.
So we have some people on the call that are involved in the business development. And I'm curious if anybody's got comments or feedback that Deborah and Bonnie are right, they're wrong, they're right if, some context. John, anybody else want to throw in some? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like, well, you know, on that same ideas, it's just, I always think like just provide value. Like if you click on my newsletter, like my newsletter it's not really about our services at all. It's about like what's happening in Teams, what's happening in Zoom, what are people doing to transition back to the office, and like what are we seeing. It's not a pitch. It's just like be seen as a resource and as a person who adds value. And then when this person has the opportunity, like they're gonna bring it to me.
Good point. So to go back to what Bonnie left off or was going with is what's your value and what problem do you solve? You're saying that people have problems with Zoom or Teams, and you're putting out what you think is relevant information.
Right. Put it out there. Yeah, I think of it as like selling in reverse. I'm already giving you the solutions, and like here's information I have, and knowledge that we have, and expertise and experience we can bring. And every time you open this newsletter, that's what you're going to see. Not buy our IT services, hire our engineers. Like that doesn't happen. But then what you're seen as a a source of information and as a good resource. Then they come to you with other things. You say, oh, well, let's talk about, the work or, contracts or whatever.
So Mark,
John? Oh,
so
sorry.
please, Deborah, please go ahead.
What John was just talking about is based in science. And if you've ever read any of Cialdini's books about persuasion, he talks about reciprocity, which is when you're giving something to someone without asking for anything in return, you're likely to get something back, because there's something about our lizard brains that just tells us if we get something from someone else, we're more likely to want to give something back. And it doesn't happen 100% of the time, but there's been all sorts of scientific experiments that prove this to be the case. So I think what John was just saying about providing value is huge. And I always like to ask my clients when they're putting together a phone script or an email ask, you want to be thinking about what is it that you're giving to your prospect just for meeting with you. If you never ever do business, what are they getting? Because at the very beginning of the process, you're not selling the great services that and products that y'all offer. You're only selling the reason to meet.
Interesting that you focus on a reason to meet, Deborah. That's great. Mark, I'm kind of curious from your experiences with direct mail. Are you seeing that where Bonnie and Deborah are saying that mail fits in as the mix, that this is, what are you seeing with trends for direct mail?
Well, I would, I just made a note here of telling Bonnie that she's exactly correct with the touches, reaching out. You have different verticals that you want to utilize to reach out to those people. And that is important that you mix it up a little bit. But it also comes back to starting with that list that she was talking about. And it's basically you have to have a qualified list. And I've known Deborah for many years, have actually used her product in the past. And it's been very beneficial for our company. But it's the list. It starts with the list, and then it starts with the offer. And that's 80% of your success. And then the other 20% is using those silos accordingly, whether it be your email, your direct mail, your web pages, your landing pages, your all those things that you have. So it's important. I'm a firm believer of direct mail, but direct mail comes back to it's only one part of the big plan. And so I hope that answers your question.
Well, putting the pandemic aside, I'm curious what any of you are seeing, that what's the mix of touches if we follow Deborah and Bonnie's comments about all these touches and a series of touches, and Deborah's top 60 clients or top 60 prospects. How much, bless you, Mark, how much direct mail fits in?
So, it used to be 7 to 8 touches is what it used to be before all the social media and everything. And now it's about 27 touches is what I'm hearing. You have to actually touch them. So that's whether it's a white paper, your phone calls, your website, directing people to your site, directing them to your social media. But it's 27 touches, and that's in person and that's digital. And because it's overcrowded. I mean, we're talking about the whole, the marketing part of promoting your business. How many emails do you get promoting something? So I come back and I say, well, it's a mail moment is very, very important to include into your quiver of touches, because that moment that someone gets the mail, it's personalized, it's direct, and they're touching it. Now, it's been a challenge because for the B2B industry, because a lot of the B2B individuals are working from home. So if you don't have that information as to how to touch them with direct mail, how to get those postcards or your letters to those individuals, it is a challenge. But it also starts with having a great list. And, it kind of comes back to what Deborah's talking about and her products.
So Deborah, are people mailing to people's homes now?
Well, in our database, there's probably about 20, a little under 20% of the addresses that are residential addresses, people that are working out of their homes. But I would say that that isn't true if your main business address is still the company. We're not collecting every individual's
Right.
home address. So
Okay.
it kind of depends. But I will say that I'm not seeing enough people use postal mail again. There was a time when we were getting a few emails and it was kind of fun. Oh, I have an email, and we were inundated with our postal mailboxes. Well, clearly the reverse is true. I'll just ask this group by show of hands, how many of you have received a prospecting piece of direct mail, business to business, in the past week? Okay. How many of you have received email prospecting in the past week? Yeah.
The last 10 minutes.
Okay. So if you're not enjoying using postal mail, you're missing an opportunity. People, it's like, oh wow, a letter, look what I got. It's different.
Yes.
And Bonnie, since you're the digital representative of the entire world here for us, can you comment between Mark saying that he continues to use direct mail and Deborah saying that you would be a standout if you would use direct mail?
Yeah, they're both right. I would say that the direct mail is going to make the email stand out even more, because if they remember the email and they just didn't answer or respond to it, and then they get a piece of mail from that exact same person or company, it's going to help them, remember you more, which is solidifying your brand in that person's mind. And then when you follow all of that up with a phone call or a LinkedIn connection request, they're going to really remember you and say, who is this person emailing me and mailing me and calling me? And I need to talk to this person at some point just so they can leave me alone. Just to say, no, I'm not interested, or, yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's have a consultation. Give me an estimate, give me a proposal. Let me see what you got. I mean, anyone who's that persistent, that's a hell of a courting strategy. But the problem is most salespeople don't have the fortitude to go after some business that persistently, and
Right.
touch them in so many different ways over a long period of time. And that's really how you win.
Good.
I mean, I was gonna say, I'm glad you said that, because I'm always thinking, okay, at what point are you doing too much, or you're, I guess
You
getting
keep
onto
going
the,
until they say, leave me alone.
I think that's why. So it was good to hear that. I stopped way before that.
I think that's what I think Angie said was the hardest thing was when somebody said no thank you, was just getting people to respond. So we got time for one last question. Anybody else want to bring up Angie, go ahead.
Just one comment is that I actually tell people that if you can meet with me and have a complimentary consultation. If you don't want to work together, all you have to say is no thank you. And all of a sudden attention just drops. Like if I tell you that's the key word, say no thank you. And then people will give me their excuse and tell me no thank you. And I'll make sure they have my information, because I'm not going to contact them. But if you decide 6-9 months from now you want to reach out to me, here's my information. I look forward to hearing from your call.
Thanks, Angie. All right. Well, in wrapping up, and in an effort to be respectful of everybody's time, including Deborah and Bonnie's, here's how you can get in touch with Deborah and Bonnie. You see their email addresses on the screen. And to let you know that we will not be doing this next week because we're celebrating the holiday in Independence Day. Coming up, conversations are entering the post-pandemic, how far to unpivot. I just love that conversation, the question, am I unpivoting? Am I swinging my pendulum back to where? And Donald's got some good data from the Small Business Development Center. After that, Kelsey's coming back with some more wild stories about how to deal with your coworkers and your employees, because well, what happens if, and there's lots of wild stories. A group discussion on why are we having a hiring gap? And then Iris Grimm this should be interesting. Iris Grimm is talking about leadership to be as good as your dog thinks you are. I'll just kind of leave that one at that. Do know that we're here every Monday other than this coming Monday for the holiday. Bonnie and Deborah, thank you so much for the insights. It's definitely what keeps us thinking, and that's what's keeping us well. So thank you guys. Have a great week and a good holiday. Take care.
Y'all stay blessed.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a happy 4th of July.
And
Bye-bye.
to you as
Thanks,
well.
Thank you very much.